Simon Anderson. I'm in Albert Park, where 1 year ago trans rights activists formed a lynch mob and rioted, attacking women in the park, including Judith Hobson, who's here with me now. Good morning, Judith.
Hi, Simon. Nice to meet you finally.
Nice to meet you too. Today, your assailant is due in court to be sentenced. How are you feeling?
A little bit nervous, to be honest. I've not seen him, apart from a picture of him, since that day. He didn't actually make a very good impression on me then, though he left quite a indelible one. Yeah, I'm
You're feeling okay?
I'm nervous, I'm scared, but I want to go and tell him exactly how I felt about things.
Mrs. Hobson, you've become the face of far-left violence committed by trans activists against women around the world. Millions, if not tens of millions of people saw the footage of your assault. Just how angry are you with me for making you famous?
I'm actually very, very grateful to you, Simon, because if it wasn't for your footage, nobody would know a thing about what happened here, because the politicians lied, the print media lied, and the television media all lied, saying this was a wonderful, peaceful, happy gathering of like-minded souls. They said nothing about the punching, the fighting, the spitting, the kicking, people being picked up and thrown. None of that was mentioned. Not a word of it.
So later today, we'll be in court, the first opportunity that you've had to face your assailant and to read your victim impact statement. Are you looking forward to having your day in court and confronting this man?
Not so much confronting him, but having my day in court and speaking truth.
What are you expecting from the court today?
You want the truth, Simon?
I would.
I think he's going to walk. I think they have been trying to sweep this under the carpet for a year now, and his lawyer has asked for a dismissal without conviction, despite the fact that he's pled guilty. They have asked for permanent name suppression. So he would walk out of that court, his name suppressed, nobody would ever know that he had smacked an old lady around.
Terrible.
Well, yes, I think so. I think he at least ought to get a conviction for it.
Mrs. Hobson, thank you for speaking with me today, and I wish you all the best for your appearance in court. I think that you are a very, very brave lady for coming and doing this and confronting your assailant, and I look forward to hearing your victim impact statement when it is read in the court today. Before we finish, is there anything else you'd like to say?
This isn't over. This is just starting.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hobson. Have a nice day. Cheerio.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Simon.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Women Up. My name's Leah and I'm joined by Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Leah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. Can't complain. Today we're joined, you will know Judith if you've been following the absolute shit show that is women's rights in New Zealand and Australia. But Judith is in New Zealand. She's the mother, the grandmother that was the victim of a terrible assault when she was attending the Let Women Speak rally. After the violent crowd descended on the women, Judith was punched in the face by a 22-year-old man. And if you don't know who Judith is, make sure you listen to her story, because what you've been through lately, Judith, is insane and you've been totally let down. So Can you go back in time and tell us what made you go to the actual event and what drew you there in the first place?
I'd seen some of Posey's programs on YouTube, and I wanted to know more. I was totally isolated from the whole movement. I knew absolutely nothing other than what I'd heard her say, and I wanted to know more about it. And I saw the ones in Australia, and I thought, well, that looks cool. You know, that's what I want to know about. These are the people I want to know, but I want to know the New Zealand ones. You know, I wanted to make connections with the New Zealand ladies who felt that way, to find out more about the whole subject, particularly the puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones. Didn't sound right to me at all. Didn't sound like we were getting the truth. So I thought I would go, and then I saw on the TV the dreadful slanders and the lies that the mainstream media and the various governments were putting up. And I thought I would perhaps go along, because I've got a really loud voice, and I thought I would go along and add my voice and perhaps be able to shout a few of the tunes down and actually be able to hear what Posey had to say, what the other women had to say. Because, you know, when you're actually there, you can't hear a lot, but when you get, but the people who are further away can hear, if you know what I mean. That it comes through on the sound system better than it does actually from their mouths, if you like.
Yeah.
A weird dichotomy that we can actually hear what they're saying from further away. But yeah, so I thought I'd go along, but I flew in, and the first hint that anybody got that things were not going to go well was when we walked up to the meeting point at the rotunda, and there were no police there. The arrangements that we'd heard about were the same as in Australia, that there were going to be a line of police in front of the demonstrators while we had our meeting, so that as much noise as they could make, we would be able to stand close and hear what was being said. But there were no police there at all. And that was rather scary, and it did upset a lot of ladies. And I said, well, you know, as long as they stay where they are, they're welcome to shout.
Because they were behind a fence, weren't they?
They were.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a metal fence, and then further in front of that there was a string on tent pegs, and they asked us, don't step over the string, keep that, I think it was something like 8 meters from the string to the actual metal fence. And they said, don't go over the string, do not talk.
Judith, who said don't go past the string?
Sorry, the stewards gave us instructions when we arrived.
Yeah.
And they asked us not to engage, do not talk to them, don't look at them, just keep your back to them, ignore them, and just wait for Posey to arrive, which was what we did. We went up to the rotunda, we sat down on benches or stood on benches or got together and chatted with each other as much as we could with the noise. And yeah, it was actually very cool to be able to meet lots of ladies from all over the place.
So you flew in, so from another part of New Zealand?
I did, yes.
Wow.
I flew in from the South Island.
And you were with someone? Did someone go with you?
No, I was on my own.
Oh, wow.
So what were you expecting, Judith? Because we'd seen the events get progressively worse and worse with the violence.
I wasn't very happy about the Tasmanian meeting, but I actually thought it might be more like Canberra. You know, like they kept them pretty much away
Yeah.
there.
Tasmanian one was wild.
Well, the Melbourne one was like a circus. When you look back at the footage, you know, in that area and all those people and all the police and everything, it really was a circus. And really, it was the Premier of Victoria and the Leader of the Opposition that started this Nazi frenzy.
Yeah.
If they hadn't have done that, it probably wouldn't have got out of hand like it
What were
did.
you thinking about that, Judith, when that happened, the Nazis?
I thought it was I thought it was something actually that had been put up by the Victoria government. To be honest, I thought they looked awfully. They didn't look like right wing. They didn't look like they knew what they were doing. They kept looking for signals sort of off to the side to see when they were supposed to do the salute and all the rest of it. I thought they're amateurs.
Well, they were actually neo-Nazis. They were actually neo-Nazis, but I agree with you that it staged. Definitely looked staged, and as if someone had sent them in, so they accused the women of having Nazi affiliations. So you go back and look at the footage, and like you said, it just seems staged. Thoughts on the day too. This is staged.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're standing there chatting to some women, and it's going quite well at this stage. And then, when is it that things actually take a turn?
I think it was when Posey arrived. There seemed to be a signal. As soon as she was up on, there was a stir through the crowd when she arrived, and then she went up onto the rotunda, and Eli attacked her with the threw that liquid all over her.
These fucking people.
And at the time, we actually did not know at that time whether it was something harmless or whether it was something harmful. But you know, she didn't act like there was anything burning or anything, so we assumed it was just a paint or something, to be honest. And we still thought that it would carry on because she rallied. You know, she just sort of flicked it off as though it didn't matter to her. Posey's an absolute trooper, you know. But then they all started moving in. And there was what they choose to call an unknown woman who came through the metal fencing and started pulling out the string, the ribbon markers. And at that point, I jumped down. I was standing on a bench beside somebody else. And I jumped down and I rushed over towards her, and I had my hands out and I was shouting, no, stop it. You're not being fair. You know, that this is our time now. It's not your time. And
as I stepped forward, that somebody had thrown one of the pieces of fencing onto the grass, and I stepped onto that. My feet went out from underneath me just about, and I fell forward onto the woman. And my hands actually made contact with her stomach, but it wasn't a blow. It was just a swift contact, and then I pulled my hands back and stood back up, and
So
she just laughed.
can I just ask, who was the woman? Was she a trans activist, or was she?
She was a trans activist, yes. Hello, I've got some dogs.
Oh.
Go away, please. I hope you can edit that out. And she was actually, she was a trans activist, most certainly. And I don't think she was as unknown as they like to pretend.
We have a rule that never to edit dogs out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dogs and babies.
They've been taken away in disgrace. Yeah, as I say, she laughed at me, and she stepped past me to walk past me, but she stepped onto the same piece of fencing, and she fell into me. And if I hadn't been standing there, she would have fallen over as well, because both our feet were all over the place. So we bumped shoulders, and then she stepped back off the grating. And at that point, I got hit from them. I turned away from her because I realised there was absolutely nothing I could do to stop the disaster that was going to happen. And I turned away, and as I turned away, the granny basher heaved himself into me and tried to knock me off my feet. As soon as he hit me behind he had one arm come up and hit me behind the ear, and the other one hit me twice. Well, it hit me once in the face, then I saw his fist coming again, and it all got a bit confusing, to be honest.
Wow.
Well, once he hit me behind the ear, everything went black. I couldn't see anything. So I presume I was out on my feet at that point.
It's just disgusting. It really is. I mean, we were watching from Australia that event live. It was absolutely horrific, because watching it live, you just didn't know if someone was going to be killed.
I'm surprised they didn't kill. I am honestly surprised they didn't kill somebody.
Me too.
Because when Kelly went to get off the rotunda, when the police were called, they were receiving emergency calls from all over New Zealand, and I think probably from Australia and worldwide, to say that they needed to get in there, and they refused. They point blank refused to come in. And so at that point, I was actually standing on the rotunda in front of Kelly and the security, and I heard the chief of security say, "The police are not coming. I've got to get you out of here." And they formed a phalanx around her and took her down the stairs. And as soon as she went down the stairs, that whole crowd, oh my God, it just surged towards her.
Get him, Brian. What? Oh my God. Go home! Go home! Go home, Percy! Go home! Fuck you! Fuck you!
Please didn't come.
Yeah, but
All right.
And I was sure, I was absolutely positive that they were going to crush her.
Mm.
She's such a little lady.
Mm. Yeah.
And there was
Where
just,
were you when that was happening then? Sorry. Were you still on
So-
the rotunda?
I stepped aside to let her come down. I was on the steps in front of the rotunda, and I stepped aside to let them get her down. And I stood and watched what happened. And to me, that was, oh God, I'm shaking.
Yeah.
That was the absolutely worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Have you
Mm.
got PTSD from that?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. Not from getting hit. I did karate for years, and I've been hit in the stomach, hit in the chest, hit in the head. It didn't, at the time, it didn't upset me, to get hit. It was just, oh well, I got hit, so what? And I just shook it off. But watching them nearly crush that lady. Oh wow.
Mm.
It was a frenzy, wasn't it? It was a
It was.
rabid pack of,
It was.
I can't even describe how disgusting they are. It
It was
just,
just a mob.
Every event was just, women weren't allowed to speak.
you could even accuse the Australian government of inciting that violence that happened on that day. That, I reckon they should, like the Victorian government, the Liberals down in Victoria, they basically incited that. And you could really say that they were ultimately responsible for what happened over in New Zealand because of those lies.
So after Kelly J got away, what were you doing, Judith? How long did it take you to get out, and how did you get out?
It took me absolutely no time at all. I didn't know what my face looked like, but apparently it looked pretty bad. But I stepped down off the steps and I said, "Excuse me, I'd like to leave now," and they just stepped apart, let me pass.
Oh, the trans activist did?
Yeah, and if anybody stood in front of me, I just looked them in the eye and said, "I would like to leave now, please."
Mm.
And they sort of stepped aside, and there was one young man who came and screamed in my face and spat in my face. And he was on my left-hand side, but when I turned my face and he saw the right-hand side of my face with all its bruises,
Mm.
he looked absolutely aghast, and he
Mm.
turned and ran away. And I thought, well, maybe there's hope for you, mate. Maybe there's one of you in there somewhere that's got some hope, if that was your reaction to seeing my face, And as I say, everybody else stepped aside, and then when we were out on the we're on the pass away from the rotunda, and it was pretty clear there because the trans activists were all having a party by that time. They were shouting and screaming and being absolutely insane on the rotunda. But apparently there were still women left there. I didn't realise. There were still women up there on the rotunda. There was a woman who was a few months pregnant, and she was trapped in up there. And the lady who organised it, Linda Sutton, she was still trapped in there. And they couldn't get away. Every time they tried to get away, they got pushed back. You know, they got manhandled. And that was absolutely...
Did the police eventually go in to get the women out? Or
no. No, they didn't.
Complete and utter negligence by the authorities.
They said the women had to come out and meet them, and there were a few men in there who actually surrounded the women and helped them get out too.
So the police said that the women have to come out to the police.
Yeah. And the women were taken out by so many steps, you know, to the edge of the area by other men who were willing. I think some of them were actually Destiny Church, and others were just people who'd come and were disgusted by what was going on.
Yeah.
And then the police took them and walked them a couple of 100 meters to the edge of the park. So, it's hard to understand. It's like circles within circles, you know, the rotunda, then a circle of pathways, then a spider web of paths going out, and then another circle of path. And but once the women were actually on the footpath outside the park, the police turned and walked away and left them to face the trans activists again.
Jesus.
That was because TV1 and the other media had a camera there. So when they got so far out, the cameras were switched on, and there were the police all surrounding these ladies and taking them out. But in fact, they only took them a couple of 100 meters while the cameras were on, and then they left them again.
That is disgraceful.
So what has this done to your perception of the police in New Zealand?
Oh, I suppose there might be some good ones somewhere. I'm not thrilled. I do believe that the Commissioner of Police should have been fired immediately for allowing that to happen, for allowing a culture to develop within the police that was allowable. That's he's still there now, even though we've had a change of government. The new government have not fired him. He's still sitting there gathering his wages and doing absolutely no blasted good at all. Yeah, well, that just shows you, doesn't it, the level of corruption. Have you ever seen anything like this in your life? No, I don't think I ever have. Not the capture of the authorities, the way that this has gone. This is all the way through. You know,
They talk about women being Nazis or affiliated with Nazis, but what we're seeing within the police force is something like it's a regime that they're more aligned to that far right type of behaviour. It's just, you're right, they've just completely infiltrated all the authorities. So you can't trust the police now, that they've got an agenda. And if you oppose that agenda, they're not going to protect you.
No.
So then what happened when you managed to get out, Judith? Did you have to go to the hospital?
Well, there was a few ladies there, and they were, oh, have you seen your face? What happened? And I said, no, I haven't seen it. She said, oh, I've got a mirror. I said, I don't want to see it, thanks. And she said, let me take you to the hospital. And there were a lot of very concerned ladies who wanted me to either A, go to and report it to the police, or B, go to the hospital and get checked out. But I was, like I say, I was there on my own, and the only thing I was conscious of was that I'd got to get back to the airport to catch my flight back to the South Island, because I actually couldn't afford to stay overnight in Auckland. So I just said, thanks, ladies, thanks, but I have to get back to the airport. And
so what was the reaction when you got to the airport, when people saw your face?
Nothing. There was no reaction, really. I think I behaved like it was normal because I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
And I actually did not get to see it until the next day, I think it was. Or when I got home, I went into the bathroom and had a look and went, oh, that's spectacular. But I do know that the air hostess on the flight was very solicitous. She kept saying if there was anything I wanted, would I like a drink of water? Was there anything I needed? So she obviously thought that I needed a little extra TLC. Bless her.
But no one actually wanted to ask you outright because they were just being
I think because I just accepted it. That it's just, I didn't walk around with my hand at my face crying or anything like that. Like I say, I've been hit before. So, no, I didn't cry. I wasn't crying. It was just, it was there and I could feel it, and I didn't really want to talk, and I sure as heck.
Were you in shock? Do you think you were in shock at the time also?
I think I was, to be quite honest. I think I was. I think it was three days before I actually came out of it. I started shaking, and when I started shaking, I started crying, and that was when it hit me.
Is that when you decided to report it?
No, that was a little bit late. That was maybe 24 hours later. I wanted the next day when all the mainstream media started saying how it was a peaceful, happy meeting and demonstration, and that Posey had left because, there was just too many people there, and they were lying. And I was so upset that the lies they were telling. And of course, Posey had to leave straight away because the police said that they couldn't protect her. In fact, they wouldn't protect her, is what the truth was. Not that they couldn't, but that they wouldn't protect her. So she left without going down to Wellington and having the Wellington meeting. And I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to tell the truth about what those people behaved like. They weren't peaceful. They weren't kind. They weren't there to do anything but to mob the women that were there to talk and to stop them speaking. And I really wanted to get that out there, but I didn't want people able to trace my account. So I asked somebody to put me up a sock account to, you know, put a different name on it. And they didn't want to do that. And that upset me a little bit, but yeah, actually that upset me quite a lot. And then the person who wouldn't put the sock account up decided that they needed to talk to my children, and that then they needed to talk to my husband, and that perhaps my husband would be safer living somewhere else.
What?
And that, I'm afraid, broke me, because I thought that I could trust this person. And the fact that you know, we've been married for 52 years, and they thought that my husband would be better off living somewhere else.
I don't understand why they said that.
Because they said I was a liar, and that the police and the mainstream media were telling the truth, and that it was me that was the liar. And that
Have they apologised?
no,
I mean, there's all that evidence. There's
Well, there is. Was that before the video footage came out that Simon Anderson had?
they looked at some video. I don't know what video they saw. But they said that it was my fault.
Oh my God. So,
And
so there are times where you can just hit a woman. In other words, they're saying, how can it be your fault? No man should ever hit a woman.
I don't know, but it upset me. And somebody from Women Speak up in Wellington phoned up and said, "Are you? I'd been talking to her online, and she said, 'Give me your phone number.' And I gave her my phone number, and she phoned up. And as soon as she phoned up, I burst into tears." And she jumped on a plane and came down, picked me up, took me away for the weekend.
Oh,
Absolutely the nicest person ever.
oh, good. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So
She was, yeah.
it took a year to get a verdict, and the verdict was just ridiculous.
Oh, that was, oh God, I wish, I don't know whether you saw all the statement that Simon Anderson put up, the bit that was crossed out and that I wasn't allowed.
I really wanted to ask you about that. So your victim impact statement was heavily censored.
Yes.
Ridiculously so. So you're standing in court about to read your victim, which
Can I
you
just ask, who's Simon Anderson?
Simon R. Anderson is a citizen journalist, and he's the one that took the 360 photographs at the protest.
Okay.
He was just trying. He went along on a whim, really, to try out his new drone with the camera on it. And if he hadn't been there, the whole thing would have died by now, because he was the one that really let people say what sort of a rabid mob they were.
Yeah.
So with the victim impact statement, why was he able to redact information from it?
The redacted.
The bits that were redacted were not pertaining to him, or not pertaining to the actual actions on the day. It was still.
How was he able to modify your statement, though? I don't understand how he has the power to do that.
Yeah, he hired a really expensive lawyer, or his family hired a really expensive lawyer for him, and she knew all the tricks and all the buttons to push, and yeah, she just delayed and obfuscated things all around all over the show. It was a very clever piece of lawyering, I will say that about her.
Oh,
That's incredible. They were able to, the other side was able to redact information from a victim impact statement.
I've never heard of this before.
It just goes to show the level of corruption with this ideology and the sort of control that it has over everything.
So,
you know,
Judith, did you realise that it was heavily redacted before you read it, or did they hand it to you already modified?
I took it in with me, and I wrote a victim impact statement in May of last year and sent it in to them. Then when it came up for sentencing, they asked me again, did I want to add anything? And I wrote another 2 pages. And then I took it, we sent a copy into the court for them to read before I read it. And I stood up to read it, and my friend said, you haven't, she said to the victim support person, are you sure this statement's all right? You haven't said anything with this new statement. And she said, oh, no, we've only got the main one, you know, and everybody was, oh, quelle surprise, there's another statement to be read. And when they read through it, they went, oh, no, this can't be said. For one thing, I absolutely slated the police.
Yeah.
And they said, no, that's got nothing to do with it, with him.
Have you found out whether or not that's normal procedure, that they can alter a victim impact statement?
Yeah, it's actually standard procedure. Yeah.
So they're in control of what the victim's allowed to say.
Yeah. And you've got no legal rights. If it's a Crown case against a perpetrator, the victim actually has no rights. You're not allowed to get yourself a lawyer and say, I want to say this. I want this brought up at the trial. It's all comes from the police prosecutor. And you've got no actual say. I didn't even know I have a summary of facts, which is what he had said happened and what the Crown had accepted as what had happened. I didn't see that until just before I read my victim impact statement. And I just sat there and went, this is a load of bloody lies, you know? Oh, well, it's already been accepted now. There's nothing you can do about it. And that was
but there's no recourse when you know that it was just full of lies. They just think, okay, it's been accepted, therefore we're allowing it to proceed based on lies about what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, it's a great judicial system, isn't it?
Oh, isn't it though? But this is it used to be that court was about redressing a crime to give the victim justice.
Yeah.
And it's not anymore. Now it's totally about getting the perpetrator off with as little harm as possible.
Yeah.
And so nothing prevents that from happening again. There's
absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. It's basically what it's done is declared open season on any woman who dares to say that a man is a man, whether he wears a boots, a wig and makeup or not, he's still a man.
Yeah.
I had one of Brisbane's most prolific transvestites in my face when I was pregnant it This is probably nearly a year ago now.
Yeah.
And nothing was done about that either. They told me to come back when I had a black eye.
Yeah, and we can see what happens when you get a black eye as well.
Yeah. I can't believe that this is the state of our system. So he was granted a discharge without conviction and permanent name suppression.
Yeah.
Ordered to pay you $1,000 in reparations.
Yes, which has just come through today.
That's pathetic.
Yeah, quite a few people think so.
Do you know if he, the perpetrator, if he thinks he's a woman?
If he thinks he's...
Does he think he's a woman? Is he trans himself?
No, he's not. No, it's just an activist.
So what was his
Who she
defence then? What was his defence?
He thought I was going to hit him.
Oh, God.
And they believe that?
They did.
Jesus.
Which is where I sort of came in with the, geez, you're a lying little shit.
Yeah.
His family must be so proud of him. What a disgraceful human being. He really is just a disgraceful.
And how are you feeling now about the whole thing, Judith, like in today?
Well, I must admit, this it's brought it up a bit, you know, so it's got me shaking a bit. So I'm going to go and grab myself a glass of wine anytime now.
Yeah.
But
So it still affects you?
it does. It does. And I promised myself that I would go and get some help as soon as the sentencing was over. But I've gotten so busy that I've not actually managed to do that, and I probably won't manage to do that for another few months at this point.
What sort of support did you get after the court case? And, you know, everyone found out that this scumbag really got away with it.
I got a lot of people online who sent messages through of support and kindness, and you know, who really thought it was disgusting. But I actually think I can't prove any of this, but I actually think NetSafe were waiting for something, because I got 2 messages that got through, I think, that were sort of like, well, you deserved it. That was all 2 messages, and I expected an absolute pile on, you know. But that didn't happen. And of course, although his name is still suppressed in New Zealand, and I've never actually spoken his name. I've never spoken his name, and I never will.
I saw that Kelly J named him.
Yeah, well, his name is Jack Hudner, and if you say it outside of New Zealand, it's not subject to their suppression laws, so that's his name.
Yeah. Rotten little.
I'm in New Zealand, so I'm not saying it.
No.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Did you hear anything from Kelly J after the event? Did she offer any support?
No. No, I think she was very, very frightened, very, very shocked. And I know
she would have been suffering from PTSD over what happened with her as well. So that's probably why. You know, you both went through hell that day. But yeah, Kelly J thought she was going to die, and you know.
She wasn't the only one, I promise you. She was not the only one. There was quite a few women here who were quite sure. Not just women, actually. There are men as well who were dreadfully frightened that day. And her head of security was petrified that he wasn't going to get her out.
They did a fantastic job, didn't they? And all the marshals that gather around her.
Yeah.
Watching it live in Australia was just, I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. And it was just, it took a while, to really understand what was going on. It was just so frenzied. They were just a frenzied mob.
Yeah.
How
It
how has this left you feeling about the state of what's women's rights and what's happening in New Zealand? Do you think it's going to get better soon, or do you think we're a long way away?
They seem to be just digging in their toes
Yeah.
and trying to make it worse, actually. We've got the Midwives Council have decided to take the word woman out of their code of practice. Now, you tell me how the hell you could talk about a woman being pregnant without, and the care that she needs, without mentioning women. Think about it. I mean, it's just insane. How the hell can you tell a midwife to go and look after the fanal? It's not the fanal that's pregnant, it's a woman.
Yeah,
There are
it doesn't.
language in legislation in Australia to removing the word woman. So it's pretty common, unfortunately. We just saw your baby.
No, it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem real, Judith, what's going on. But me and Sue are gonna still keep getting out there.
Yeah.
We do speakers' corners and things like that and protests.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Now she's 2. I can't accept that there's going to be men in her spaces.
No, I think we're going to have to get real pushy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the hate speech laws that are coming in too. So
Yeah.
passed, but they haven't taken effect yet. So
you know, I really don't care about the hate speech laws. They want me to. There is going to be so much hate going around as far as that's.
Yeah.
Hate. I have not yet begun to hate.
the thing is, the hate doesn't come from us.
It doesn't.
No.
It comes from the trans extremists and their supporters.
Yeah.
And the governments that are erasing the language. The hate comes from them. It doesn't come from us. There's no hate from us.
No. Well, there is a little bit from some really. Some people have been really, really hurt by this. There are women who are victims.
Yeah.
And they have been dreadfully damaged by this. And I can understand why they hate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way myself. I just feel like, you know, if they want to go and sleep with whoever or do whatever they want to themselves, then off they go and do it. But do not expect me to accept it. Do not expect me to accept them in my space.
The thing is, though, they can do whatever they want. That's fine. But they're compelling. They're changing our lives. They're compelling our speech.
Yes.
Telling what we're allowed to think. You know, we don't have freedom of association, and you know, they have impacted our lives so much and oppressed us so much. Hate was never coming from us, and it's never been hate towards how they want to identify. It's just a pushback on taking away our rights.
Yes. And my main focus is children. I want it stopped.
Yeah. Same.
Do you have grandchildren, don't you, Judith?
I do. And this all started. Most of my grandchildren are grown up now and are well past this. But I've got 2 granddaughters, and just before I went up to Auckland, one of them came out as non-binary. And the other one has ADHD, and I'm absolutely petrified what they're going to brainwash her into. So, that's my main focus is children. I may not be able to help them, but maybe I could help somebody else's kids.
Yeah, well, thank you, Judith. Thanks for speaking.
It does help. Every time I go through it, it gets a little bit less. So thank you for listening.
And it's amazing, though, because they think the more they try and shut us down, even with aggression, with violence, that it's going to stop people from speaking up. And you're the perfect example, Judith. You know, what they did to you, and here you are, you're not going to let them push you down and shut you up. So you're a real credit to all of us who are fighting this. And it was a disgraceful display of exactly who they are and what they did to you. And to think that he got off without a conviction says a lot about the authorities in New Zealand, and they should all hang their head in shame. It's just insane.
Yeah,
They should. Yeah, there is one thing I would like to mention before we all part ways. When I mentioned Simon Anderson earlier, he actually publishes in Liberty Speak in Australia, and he's published a article, I think either late this evening or tomorrow morning, about this. And you might find it interesting to have a look and have a read of that.
Yeah.
So Liberty,
we'll put it in the description for everyone else to read as well.
So you know of it, do you, Leah?
I know of him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll let you go now, Judith.
Yeah,
okay, thanks, dear. I'll go and get my dinner. All right, darling.
Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Simon Anderson here. I'm here with Judith Hobson outside of Auckland District Court. Mrs. Hobson, you've just heard the result of the court case against your assailant. Can you tell us what happened and what you thought of that?
He walked. I thought he was going to, and they basically smacked him across the wrist with a wet birth certificate, and he's discharged without conviction, and he's got full name suppression for life.
The court asked him to make an emotional support payment to you, emotional harm compensation payment in the amount of $1,000. Do you think that is adequate recompense for what happened to you?
I think that is a disgusting suggestion, quite honestly. That doesn't even cover my airfares, let alone my friend's airfare that came to support me. So, no, I don't think that $1,000 is an adequate amount. I think it's a contemptuous amount. I think New Zealand and its law system is broken and disgusting.
Mrs. Hobson, I noticed that the police prosecution did not oppose the defence's application for permanent name suppression. Was that a surprise to you?
It was a bit, yes. That was the only thing I asked for, that they drop the name suppression and let other people know that when they're around him, they are at risk. But no, they decided that he was going to be hidden.
All right, Mrs. Hobson, I think you've been very brave today, and thank you for all of your efforts. Before we finish, is there anything you would like to say to the people who are watching?
Keep fighting, ladies. This is just the beginning.
Right, thank you, Mrs. Hobson. Very well done.